Thanks for stopping by the channel, guys. In this video, we're going to continue work on our BNSF Eastern Washington Subdivision Model Railroad Overhaul project. We're going to work to prep and prime the backdrop on both the upper and lower levels. Then we're going to get a solid terrain color down on both the upper and lower levels that we'll use down the road when we get into scenery work. We're also going to work to cut out, install, and paint all of the fascia on both decks and on the lighting balance for the upper deck. And then I'm going to paint this backdrop. Thanks to other YouTubers who posted videos on how to. It turned out all right. That's coming up. Okay, so to get our backdrop ready for paint, I'm just going to use some interior white paint that I have as a primer on the two bare pieces of the backdrop that I had to put up. And then I'll go through and I will fill all the holes and all the seams all the way around, come back with one more coat of primer, and then I'll work on getting the sky blue painted. I'm going to try a different technique on this layout where I go from a lighter blue on the bottom to a little bit darker with a blend to kind of give it a little bit more of a realistic look, where in the past I just went with a solid color. So I'm going to change that up a little bit. Alright, so there's a base coat over that. I got a few holes on the bottom one that I got to fill. I'll get some putty out. I'll let this set up for a few minutes. Then I'll hit it with some putty. And then there's a few other spots I'm going to, while I have it out, go ahead and hit. I'll do that off camera. But I'll come back and we'll talk about the putty that I use to fill these holes. Okay guys, so I got a few little dings in this section of backdrop, so I'm just going to use some wood filler on it. It's not going to take much. You could use spackle, you can use all kinds of different things, but I've got this wood filler here, so I'm just going to use it because it's available and it won't take very long to put in there. Just kind of smooth it over. That's it. Pretty easy, very user friendly. And again, I'm just trying to get these smooth, and then I'll come back over it with my putty knife, and there we go. That'll paint up just fine. But that's what I'm gonna do on these last few little spots. Okay guys, so you can see I got all of the backdrop primed, so it's ready for painting. These two new sections over in this area here I hit with a couple of coats so that it would take and come out even with the rest of them. So I'm pretty pleased with this. This will work for where we're at. So next thing I want to tackle here on the layout is I salvaged as much of the existing 1-inch foam that I used for a base for my layout, and I had to do something with the existing scenery because I had ballast on it and I had turf and static grass everywhere. So what I did is I just put some hot water in a spray bottle and then soaked everything. I used white Elmer's glue when I did all of my landscaping work, so just by putting that hot water on there, I let it set for maybe 5 minutes, came back with a putty knife, and it all scraped up really nice. Then I used my shop vac to just clean everything off. I let it dry overnight, and now what I'm going to do is hit it with a coat of brown just to give it that dirt look and a nice base to get started with. So before I start painting, I'm just going to do just a little bit of prep work. I'm just going to run some blue painter's tape right along the backdrop so we don't goof up our backdrop that we got primed earlier in the video. And I'll just work my way around the room doing that. And I already got the masking done on the upper deck, so now I'll just finish it on the lower deck. Alright guys, so we got all of our masking tape up on the lower and upper decks. We're getting ready to put down our base terrain color here. We're just going to use this nutmeg brown. I got a 2-inch foam brush and a cup of warm water, which I'll use to thin the paint as needed, just to kind of get a base coat on everything. Okay guys, so the first thing we got to do with our fascia is figure out how tall we want it. So each of my decks are 3 5/8 of an inch tall. I'm going to go at 4 1/2, and I'm going to do that on both levels. On the top level, that'll come down about an inch, so that'll cover anything that's in here. You won't see it. It'll be a good presentation for the lower deck of the model. For the lower deck, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go 4 1/2. That'll give me almost an inch, and that will hide the connection, so when I put a skirt down here to cover the storage. So now that I have the dimensions for the height of my fascia that I want to cut, I'll go out to the garage, I'll set up the table saw, and I'm just going to use a sheet of 1/8 inch hardboard, and I'll rip it into strips, and then I'll come in and I'll install it with some brads, and then we'll fill the holes, and then we'll paint it black, and that'll be done. So I've got the camera set up in the doorway to my hobby room, and you can see I got the fascia all cut and installed. I pin nailed that in place, and the next thing I'll do is I'll get some putty and I'll go through and I'll start filling those holes, and while that's drying, I'll start painting on the backdrop. So after watching several tutorial videos on YouTube on how to paint a realistic sky backdrop, I decided to give this 2-color blend a try. I'm using the color sky blue on the top half, the darker blue, and on the lower half I'm using the color blue cotton. So I'm using a roller to put the sky blue on, I'm using a foam brush to put the blue cotton on, and then I have a separate brush that I dip in some water, and then I just blend the two together. The overall effect worked out pretty cool. I'm pretty pleased with it. Thanks to all the YouTubers who posted these tutorials, because this is not my cup of tea, but I think it turned out pretty well. Okay, so I got done painting the backdrop. That worked out pretty good. Thank you to YouTubers who are posting that stuff, because it helps some of us out with learning new techniques, so I'm pretty pleased with that. And lastly, I'm just putting a coat of black on the fascia on the upper and lower decks and on the upper lighting valance, and this will be a great way to finish off all the work that we did in this video. So here's a shot of everything that we finished in this video. Here it is before, and then we'll come back to the finished product. So again, in this video, we just worked on a lot of foundational pieces. We're getting closer and closer to laying track, which will be an exciting step. So if you'd like to follow along with this build, hit the subscription button and the notification button. Feel free to hit that like button. We like those too. Thanks for watching, guys. Happy railroading.